You're live now.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We will begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
So moved.
So move.
It sounds like two so moves in a
Second.
second. And so will all those in favor signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Against? Okay, very good. The ayes have it. We do have two items that are up for a public hearing today. The procedures will basically be that we will we will read in the conditional use request. After that's read in, we will then receive a report from Mr. Antonucci from our planning department. After that, we'll ask a representative from our law department to swear in any of those that wish to testify in reference to the public public hearing, the conditional use. After they're sworn in, they will then be given an opportunity, a couple minutes to testify either in favor, against, or have questions. After that, we'll close the public hearing. After we close the public hearing, we'll open it up for comment from the committee members. And after that, for any council members that may wish to comment. The difference is this evening, we'll repeat that process at 7 o'clock tonight. And of course, all of those interested persons are encouraged to attend this evening at 7 o'clock. We'll repeat that. The only main difference is the committee will make a recommendation to council, either in favor, against, or to table an item, take time. So those are the procedures that we will follow. All members are here and present. And so we'll begin with the first item that's up for a public hearing today, which is an ordinance modifying an existing conditional use which permits the establishment of a motor vehicle storage area at 259 West Market Street. Mr. Antonucci.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Cherokee Acquisition Corporation, doing business as Budget Rent-A-Car, was asking permission to remove condition number 2 from ordinance number 49, 1994, which required that the easternmost curb cut along West Market Street be eliminated. In summary, Akron City Council passed ordinance 49, 1994 on January 31st, 1994, which allowed Budget Rent-A-Car to establish a motor vehicle storage area at 259 West Market Street. The ordinance contained 16 conditions. Specifically, condition number 1 called for a landscape area along West Market Street and West Street. Condition number 2 stipulated that the most easterly driveway cut on West Market Street be closed. Condition number 4 called for all parking areas to be paved, with condition number 15 requiring a performance bond. In 2007, the zoning office received a complaint that these 4 specific conditions weren't met, and an order to comply was issued on June 26, 2007. Consequently, a performance bond was posted on December 17, 2008, with a new plan submitted on September 26, 2008. The newer approved plan showed the curb cut being eliminated, paving and landscaping along West Market Street and West Street. Subsequently, the paving and landscaping was completed, but the curb cut was not eliminated. The zoning office received further complaints in May and December of 2020, so last year. Inspection in early 2021 revealed that the landscape buffer had been removed. The planning staff issued an order to comply on March 31st of this year for failure to comply with 2 conditions of ordinance number 49, 1994. The petitioner has stated several reasons why they believe the easternmost curb cut along West Market Street should not be eliminated. First, the retail rental car business has operated for 27 years at this location. Secondly, the interior circulation pattern is dependent upon having 2 curb cuts along West Market Street. The westerly curb cut aligns with the car wash bay, with the eastern curb cut aligning with the rear storage area. Petitioner has stated that the functionality of the site and safe flow of traffic would be severely constrained if forced to eliminate a curb cut. Third, the petitioner stated that the 2 curb cuts along West Market Street have not posed any safety risk. The City of Akron traffic engineer confirms that there has not been any documented crash reports since 2015, specifically related to their curb cuts. As such, because of the duration of the business use, the absence of documented crashes, the fact that the abutting business, which is Enterprise Car Rental to the west, Also has 2 curb cuts along the same street frontage. Planning staff can support the removal of condition number 2 from ordinance 49, 1994. Planning staff also recommends the petition to repair or restore any deteriorating curbing or sidewalks along West Market Street and or West Street. Furthermore, the building exterior needs improvement as well as double stagger rows of bushes installed within the landscape area. These improvements have actually begun. We did recently, just last week, approve a landscape plan for further landscaping. So improvements are taking place right now. So with this, Planning Commission, planning staff recommend approval, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. At this point, we'll ask a representative from our law department, Ms. Advent, to swear in anyone who wishes to speak today on this particular item at 259 West Market.
Okay, those wishing to speak during this public hearing, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? If so, please answer, I do.
I do.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Advent. Thank you very much. So at this point, we'll open up the public hearing portion of this conditional use request and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this conditional use request. I see Mr. Dotson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason Dodson with the law firm of Rutzel and Andrus, 222 South Main Street, Suite 400, Akron, Ohio, 44308 is our business address. First of all, I'd like to take the time to thank the committee, council members, planning staff, law department staff who worked with myself and attorney Mark Young, who is out of our Cleveland office, who have been working with Cherokee Acquisitions, DBA, budget rent-a-car system. And as Mr. Antonucci had indicated, I think this issue really started most recently back in the spring. Actually, I would say Mark and I got involved in the spring. And really this issue for the property as a whole dates back to the mid-90s in terms of approval that was given by City Council. And that approval, as Mr. Antonucci had indicated, did include a requirement that the easternmost driveway or curb cut on the property be removed. For reasons that are still unbeknownst to us, as well as the current individuals we have worked with at budget, that driveway was never removed. And unfortunately, nobody who's in their current position was involved back then, nor was anybody who's in their current position in Budget's law department or their management staff involved in 2007, 2008, when it appears was kind of the last time that this issue arose and that the city attempted to obtain compliance with the conditions that had been previously approved by council. This time around, since Mark and I have been involved, what we've tried to do is work with the client in order to make sure that one, we are getting into compliance with not only the conditions that had been in place previously, or are seeking a conditional use permit for one of those conditions, that being the easternmost driveway to remain in place. And we are also working with our client in order to make sure that we are in compliance with the conditions that Planning Commission has recommended for the new conditional use approval. And that new conditional use approval, as Mr. Antonucci had indicated, would allow that driveway, the eastern driveway, to remain, which would leave 2 driveways on West Market Street. As Mr. Antonucci had indicated, we believe there are several reasons based primarily in data and traffic analysis of the site that was performed by GPD Group on our client's behalf, which really indicated that there were no prior accidents related to these 2 drives in the last 10 years. And actually their opinion that site flow internal to the site and onto the site would actually be worse and potentially more problematic from an accident perspective if one of the drives were to be removed. We've also then worked with the client to make sure that these new conditions that have been recommended by the Planning Commission to council, that we essentially get a head start on those conditions. And so as Mr. Antonucci had indicated, we've already submitted a landscape plan Earlier this year, we attempted to landscape based on the prior plan. And I think the landscape, well, it looks better. I think much better than what had been there before. We need to make sure we come into conformance with the current landscape plan or landscape requirements of the city. So we have submitted that plan. That plan has been approved. Unfortunately, with the weather, we're kind of deciding whether or not it makes sense to proceed now or in the spring as soon as the weather breaks, to actually proceed with planting some additional shrubs that we would be required to plant. In terms of the condition of the building itself, for anybody who's driven by there, I think you'll see that the building is in much better shape now than it was. Pretty much the entire exterior of the building has been improved, repainted, siding replaced, trim replaced, gutters replaced, etc. And we will be working with our client as well in terms of the condition to make sure that the curbs and sidewalks are repaired. Along West Market Street, I think everything appears to be in order. We do have some curb work and I think one or maybe two sidewalk squares along West Avenue that we believe will need to be repaired, and we'll work with the planning department staff to get approval on that. So long and short, certainly, it's unfortunate that we are here after 20 some years of this property apparently not being in compliance with that prior conditional use permit. However, I think our client has made great strides to not only address the conditional or not only address the conditions that we're talking about today, but also just to improve the property as a whole and make it consistent with a number of the other properties in that neighborhood.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dotson. Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request here at 259 West Market Street? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone? Anyone wishing to speak against conditional use request at 259? Anyone wishing to speak against? Very good. We'll close the public hearing portion of this conditional use request. We'll open it up to any committee members that may have questions or comments. Any committee members? Okay, not seeing any. Now we'll open up to council, and I see Representative Holland. Council Representative Holland has her hand up. The ward council person for the area.
Thank you, Chairman Fusco. I just want to make a few comments about this. This is an unusual case for a number of reasons. As Council for Budget has clearly pointed out, this has a long backstory to it. And I think that there are important things that we all need to understand and recognize in terms of the provenance of how we got here. Literally, the original conditional use permit is, it's older than the people who currently work at this location, older than council's current representatives of the corporation. The only person with a real institutional memory of the story is an individual who is a nearby business and residential neighbor who I've been in some communication with, and that is Mr. Jesser, who owns and operates an adjacent business. I have been in communication with him, as I've been in communication with the representatives of Budget. And some of the concerns have been very simple. And I believe that in large part, this is a story about good neighbor behavior. And I wish to weigh in the following way. I want Mr. Jesser to know that his concerns have been heard. I also believe that this is a good moment for us all to observe that conditions are important and that enforcement of conditions is also very important. I also believe that that Council for Budget has demonstrated, and I'm talking now about attorneys Young and Dotson, that diligently working to meet the expectations, not just of the letter of the conditions, but also going beyond. makes a big difference in terms of meeting community expectations of what a good neighbor does. It is my hope that whatever is the wish, whatever is the determination of this committee, that what we can take away from this is that conditional use is a system by which we make decisions of what can be and what should be, that we acknowledge that there are competing interests, that we should all do our best to live harmoniously. And that in this instance, we have perhaps what could be described as a series of unusual and unfortunate events, but that at the end of the day, we have a corporate entity that is working very hard through council to not just meet, but exceed some expectations, and they are reasonable ones. Importantly, the curb cut at issue has evidently, by a couple of different metrics, not produced the kind of harm that was of the original concern. My hope is that these neighbors, and they are neighbors, will be able to move forward with a more attractive presence on this particular street corner and a more harmonious relationship. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Holland. Any other questions or comments from any council members at this point? Okay, any comments? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the second item, and we'll certainly invite back Mr. Dotson and Mr. Young for this evening at 7 o'clock. Again, we'll repeat this process and the committee will make a recommendation at that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. The next item that's up for a public hearing today is ordinance authorizing conditional use to establish a type A daycare home at 2087 Wyndham Road. Mr. Antonucci.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Ben and Kaylin Mosley are requesting permission to establish a child daycare home, a type A, at this location. The proposed daycare business center, Kay's Kingdom Care, would occupy the lower level of the split level 2,700 square foot dwelling. Facility would provide services and activities for up to 12 children at a time, ranging in age from 18 months to 4 years. During the summer, the age range would expand to include children up to 12 years of age. The daycare would be operated Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Property contains a rear yard outdoor play area, and the backyard is enclosed. Petitioners have stated that they have over 10 years combined childcare experience in education. The proposed use should not be intrusive to the neighborhood because the outdoor play area is fenced and the majority of the activities are conducted indoors. The dwelling contains an attached 2-car garage with sufficient driveway length for drop-off and pickup. This property is well maintained, providing quality daycare services beneficial to the entire city. Both Planning Commission and planning staff recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Antonucci. We'll now ask if there's anyone that's going to be here to testify in reference to this conditional use request. They'd be sworn in by a member of our law department, Ms. Advent. So Ms. Advent, take it away.
Yes, if there is anybody here who's wishing to speak during this public hearing, please take yourself off mute and please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? If so, please answer, I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Advent. At this point, we'll open up the public hearing portion and ask if there is someone here that wishes to testify in favor of this conditional use request. Please come forward and we're more than willing to hear your testimony. I believe Ms. Mosley is here.
Yes.
Yes. By all means.
Hello. So my name is Kaylin Mosley. We've been operating a type B childcare for the past 2 years. All of our neighbors are in favor. We wanted to make sure, we cleared the air with them to be sure that they were on board, and they 100% support us. We haven't had any complaints so far. And we know that the quality, smaller home childcare is so needed. We have our own 2 daughters, so we know it's super important. And just wanted to introduce ourselves and tell a little bit about us.
Well, thank you very much for attending this afternoon. Appreciate it. Anything else that you'd like to add?
Yes, well, we are, I say one of our neighbors has their two children enrolled with us. We've had a long-standing relationship with them that has been well. We enforce a no idle zone policy here to respect our neighbors in the neighborhood. And we pride ourselves on having good care for the children, personalized care for the children in this area. We love the area, we love our neighbors, they love us. And we thank you all for your time today.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request here at 259 Wyndham? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone wishing to speak against? Very good. We'll close the public hearing portion of this conditional use request and open it up to any committee members that may have any questions or comments. Anyone? Okay, very good. Not hearing anyone.
Mr. Chair, I can see that Councilman Malik has his
Chair, did you have something? I'm sorry.
That's okay. I can see that Councilman Malik has his hand raised, as well as Councilwoman Mosley.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, Ms. Mosley.
Thank you. I just wanted to note for the record that I am not related to the Mosley.
Okay.
Wanted to make sure we put that on the record here. And I think this is a much needed service in our community, especially with people wanting to get back to work. So continue your good work, and nice last name, although we're not related.
Right. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Mosley. Yes, Mr. Malik, I believe the ward council person for the area. Is that right?
That is correct. And thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to the petitioners for the work that you're doing. As has been said, really much needed work, especially as we've seen of late with COVID. I just want to speak in favor of this. I really appreciate that the petitioners have, have done a lot of outreach to the neighbors. And I'm glad that it's been, a positive experience. I know there are a lot of, kids in the neighborhood. I'm glad to hear that they're benefiting. I was once a kid in the neighborhood who would fall off of his bike coming down that hill on Wyndham. And so I'm glad to see that this use will be there, and just want to speak in favor of it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any further comments or questions from any council members or anyone? Very good. Hearing none. We'll invite you back, of course, this evening at 7 o'clock, and we will make a recommendation at that time for the public hearing this evening at 7.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you again for coming by this afternoon. Very good. We'll move on to the balance of the agenda at this time, and gonna go ahead and recommend we take time on the regular agenda, short of any questions or concerns out there. And we'll move into the new list of legislation, of which there's 2 items that we have here. The first is an ordinance extending for 1 year the conditional use granted to Genesis Outdoor Advertising to install a digital billboard along I-77 at 530 Nome Avenue. Mr. Antonucci, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, this is the second extension of time for this. This was approved back in 2018, digital billboard at this location along I-77. It's a standard digital billboard size. The petitioner is working with ODOT to schedule an appeal hearing, and that should be coming up, later this year. So they're requesting another year's time on this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Antonucci, for that. We did have a public hearing. For the full disclosure of council, this is a property that's owned by the city of Akron, known as Good Park Golf Course. And this would be located on that property. And so with that, I see Mr. Neal, I believe, is on the line as well. This, I believe, is his ward. If he doesn't have any questions or comments and is okay with us proceeding forward, I would recommend, as we had a public hearing on this some years ago and approved it, and it sounds as if this ODOT as well as the petitioners are ironing some things out before they proceed. So if there's any questions or comments, I'll make sure Mr. Neal's okay with continuing this. It's his ward area. So let's see. Oh, yes, Mr. Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Antonucci, just wanted to, you mentioned the appeal from ODOT. So did ODOT reject the usage at this location, or what's the situation there?
Yeah, ODOT had some concerns about the existing zoning on the property, being that it's good park, that the actual underlying zoning of that is single-family residential. They look for a commercial zoning in order to, for billboards along expressways. So the zoning isn't exactly the way they want it to be, although it is good park, golf course, and it's a golf course. There's a retail restaurant there. So there's some disagreement, I suppose, between the petitioner and ODOT, and there's an appeal hearing. Supposedly there should be an appeal hearing scheduled this year. So that's
Okay,
where
thank
we're
you.
at with it.
Thank you very much. It just seems strange because, if this council, which has the primary zoning responsibility, is fine with that, then one would think that, ODOT would be, but thanks for that clarification, Mr. Antonucci.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Neal, if you're okay with this, we'll go ahead and move forward, or perhaps what we could do is place this on the consent agenda.
Chair, he's coming back in right now.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm not able to hear it. It's not coming through.
I don't know. Can you hear me now, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
yes, sir. I said I'm okay with it.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Neal. Thank you. Mr. Antonucci, is it okay to place this item on the consent agenda?
That would be fine.
Okay, yeah, if there's not a sense of urgency, then I would like to entertain a motion that we place this item on the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Out there. Second, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The ayes have it. We'll report that out for consent agenda this evening. The next item is under the new legislation is item number 2, ordinance authorizing the Director of Planning and Urban Development to file an application and enter into an agreement with the state of Ohio for Homeless Crisis Response Program. And I did see, I believe, Ms. Tomic is here in reference to this particular item.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. On September 28th, 2021, the Ohio Department Services Agency released an application for the Homeless Crisis Response Program. The state of Ohio is allowing state-appointed applicants, such as the city of Akron, to apply for 2022 and 2023 Rapid Rehousing and Homeless Prevention Funds. The application is due on October 25th, which is next Monday. The Homeless Crisis Response Program will provide financial assistance, case management to individuals and households who are homeless. Funds may be used for rental assistance, security deposits, utility deposits, utility payments, moving costs, and motel hotel vouchers. Assistance varies in length depending on need. Clients are recertified every month to determine their rental assistance needs. The city of Akron will work with United Way, our rapid rehousing provider, to disperse the funds. We will also work with the homeless youth providers to address youth homelessness in the city of Akron, as well as our LGBTQ population. The Akron, Barberton, Summit County Continuum of Care will receive the city of Akron will receive approximately $507,000. This is a 2-year grant effective January 1, 2022 through December 31st, 2023. We respectfully request the suspension of the rules because we do have to submit the legislation with our application that is due on October 25th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there, so the continuum of care is going to be the direct where these funds are going to go specifically?
So the city of Akron is applying for the funds and then we will receive the funds. The continuum of care is a partner with us in working with the distribution of the funds.
Gotcha. And it's $507,000 for a 2-year grant, correct?
Approximately 507, correct.
Has it been determined like who gets what?
Well, we have not received the money exactly. So once we get in a direct allocation, we will be looking at, I'm thinking United Way is probably going to get the large chunk of it. And maybe $100,000 for our youth provider, and $50,000 to $75,000 for the LGBTQ provider.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from committee members? Questions or comments from committee? Okay, not hearing any. I did see Mr. Neal's hand up first, and then Mr. Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question, Ms. Tillman. When a similar piece of legislation came in, we had some conversation. And again, I appreciate us being able to dialogue. I know we have to have further conversation. Here's my question. With these dollars coming in, and I heard going to United Way, have we had a chance to evaluate the success of the present way we're administering these funds? And I say that because as a one who provides housing as a landlord, and some of my tenants have used these different funds through different agencies, I know that most are challenged with the capacity to be able to process applications. So if we just bring more funding through the same sources, we're not really going to be able to address the needs. And then there is a segment of the population that has been brought to my awareness, one being the LGBTQ+ community, and then young, especially from that community, young Black children period, who have aged out, that aren't being serviced, especially if they fall in that LGBTQ+ community. My bottom line is, have we had the opportunity to really evaluate the effectiveness of what we're doing? Because like we're seeing in every other area where service is trying to be provided, people are at max capacity, and being able to provide services backlog. So I'd like to see if we can, one, take a look at how effective it's been in serving constituents from different wards, and if there's some disparity on what wards are demanding more of those services, and see if we can find partners right within those communities who can assist with this process.
So there's a lot of questions, comments here. I took some notes down, so I'm hoping I'll be able to address everything that you asked. So these are not new funds. This is the state requires us to apply every 2 years, but we have been receiving these funds since the foreclosure crisis in 2009-10. So, but they're two-year renewals. So this is not new money coming in. It's existing money. They just have us go through this application process. We at the Continuum of Care is very well aware of the issues that our homeless population is facing, those seeking rental assistance, what they're facing, and we are trying to look at opportunities and ways that we can make that application process easier for them. So we're constantly going through those conversations of what we can do to streamline the process on our end and from the landlord's perspective. The Continuum of Care is actually in the process of hiring I think they're going to call it a housing locator. I think that's the name. I think they just issued the job posting today. This person's primary job is going to be to work with landlords in our community to establish those relationships and getting them to rent to our vulnerable populations. And then we're also looking at, like I said, opportunities to streamline that process and make it easier. COVID did not play like everything else that we do in our daily work. COVID has not made our work any easier. If anything, it's made it much more difficult. But those conversations are something that we look at on a monthly basis. In terms of wards, I can ask for an HMIS report for, if you're interested, we'll just look from January 1 to December 31st of 2020 and look at the zip code. I don't know if they track it by wards. Pretty sure they don't, but we can get a zip code analysis for you of folks that are seeking housing, what zip codes they are coming from.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yes, thank you. And
Okay.
I'm sorry, I wasn't so much speaking of new funds, be they funds that always are in our budget, or quote unquote new funds. It's more so that the agencies that are presently providing these services are maxed out, and so
Yes.
if we find ways to assist. That would be helpful.
And some of these dollars are, and I think at our last meeting, I think Councilwoman Mosley, I think, asked for a distribution of how the funds are spent in terms of operating costs, and I still don't have that information back. But built into this is, like I said, operating costs for case managers and those type of activities. And the needs are great, and we're doing all that we can. And like I said, we're constantly looking at what we can do to make our system better.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Mr. Malik, I see your hands up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Ms. Tomic. I think you largely answered my questions. I was going to ask about the history of the program. So I appreciate that. I guess the one question I did have was, you mentioned, some will go to the youth provider and some will go to the LGBTQ plus provider. The latter, that's Canopy, is that right?
Yes, that's who we would be looking at, yes.
Okay.
And I believe the other one is Harmony House, and I think they've established some relationships with Mr. Arrington as well. I think Councilman Neal we had those conversations, so those conversations are going on with Harmony House and Mr. Arrington.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just regarding the LGBTQ population, I just pulled up the 2020 point in time count, and I think it showed, I think zero transgender people or zero gender non-conforming people. I guess just kind of wondering, maybe, it is a point in time count. It obviously can't capture everyone, but it does seem, do we have information on how many folks are within that population? Again, it may not be a question that can be answered right now, but do we have information about how many folks are in that population and, how we're serving them?
I don't have that information, but I can get that for you. As you indicated, it is a point in time count, and individuals have to present themselves as such in order for us to capture that information, and they may not. So I will, once I get the information for Councilman Neal regarding the zip code distribution, I will also get this information for you as well.
Thank you, and no rush. Thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Thank you for your questions. Any further questions or comments from anyone? Any further questions or comments? Well, we had heard that from Ms. Tomic that there's a sense of urgency reference to this, so I'm going to request a suspension of the rules with a favorable report. Can I get a motion for that?
Motion for suspension of the rules with favorable report.
Thank you.
Second.
And I hear seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Very good. I see Ms. Mobian, his hands up.
Just got a quick question. I just want to know, is CSS involved in this at all?
They are not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Okay, very good. We'll report that up favorable with suspension of the rules this evening. With that,
Thank you.
This planning committee meeting of council is adjourned. Thank you all. And I'm going to turn it over to our clerk, Sarah Viviano.
Thank you. Our next committee meeting of the day will be the Public Safety Committee, and they will begin at 2:15. Those committee members are Kamer, Mosley, Lombardo, Malik, and McKittrick. Again, that's Public Safety at 2:15. So we will stop the live stream and be back at 2:15. Thanks, everyone.